Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is my second video, and today I wanted to talk about therapy and therapist appointments, and specifically bad therapists. So, first off, I'm going to be intermittently looking at notes on my phone just so that I can stay on track and make sure that I don't zone out, 6 or 7 times just trying to balance it. So hopefully it won't take quite as long as usual for editing. But anyway, so first thing I wanted to talk about was I had a therapist appointment yesterday that I missed, and I didn't even realize I missed it until today, this morning specifically, because, well, I say morning, I didn't wake up until close to noon, but basically, I remember talking to the therapist on the phone because my appointments are over the phone, not in person. So I remember talking to my therapist on the phone and looking at my phone and physically putting in the date and time that my next appointment was supposed to be, which was today at 1:30. So I had everything ready for today at 1:30, and then Wednesday, I got a text message saying that my appointment was on Thursday, not Friday, like I had assumed. So I called them, and I went to clarify, and not only was it the day was wrong, but it wasn't at 1:30, it was at 8:45 in the morning. So I got everything wrong, and I still don't know why or how. But anyway, that happened. Missed my appointment. Was kind of hoping that I hadn't missed it, but I did because my phone was not having signal yesterday. It was raining like crazy. So anyway, as a brief history, I started going to therapy when I was 8 years old. There were reasons for that I'll get into in a different video, but I started going when I was 8 years old. I kind of was on and off with therapy until I was 12. When I was 12, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder with psychotic features. Basically, I was having PTSD so bad that I was hallucinating. So at 12 years old, I went and saw a psychotherapist, and that is also the same time period where I started self-harming. And I'll get into this in a minute, but there was something that happened with that. But anyway, so I started going to therapy more regularly when I was 12. I think I stopped again when I was 16 or 17 years old. And then I just recently started going back now that I'm 21. So, and I went to one therapist 5 or 6 sessions when I was 19, but that's a whole other video. Which I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but I guess I have a lot of videos to make. But, so the first story I want to tell you guys about is when I was 12 years old and I started seeing a psychotherapist for the first time. So I'd had therapy on and off before that. It's hard to find therapists when you're younger because you don't know what you need yet. And my mom was not really equipped to figure out what I needed either, so it was a lot of back and forth with different people, trying to find someone who fits my personality, which is difficult when you're an undiagnosed autistic person. So finally turned 12, finally got officially diagnosed with something, ended up seeing this woman, let's call her Grace. So Grace is a therapist that is actually still practicing, I think, which I found horrifying. But she was this really like hippy dippy type person, and I hate saying that, but she was like the most stereotypical older hippie woman that I have ever met in my life. Like long silver hair, always wearing flowy dresses, didn't shave anything. Like, not that any of this stuff is bad, of course, but just whatever you have pictured in your head when you think of an older hippie woman, that's what she looked like. So I started seeing her, and everything kind of like started out fine. She was very, you know, upbeat, friendly. It wasn't until I started mentioning the self-harming that things really went sideways. So I usually, when I was younger, I didn't mention the self-harming right away because I was scared that they would tell my parents, which some of them did and some of them didn't. Of course, my mom already knew, so it wasn't like I was hiding it so much as I just didn't want to have to talk about it with her. But I started seeing Grace, and I told Grace about it finally, and she told me that cutting is actually a good coping mechanism for some people. I was 12. So Grace thought that a 12-year-old cutting themselves was a good coping mechanism. And she still practices today. And I wish I had some proof of what had happened so that I can get something, contact someone. She should not be in practice saying that sort of thing. But I, of course, being 12 and already being, you know, set in my ways of I want to cut, I will find any excuse to continue to self-harm. I rolled with it. I did not realize that it was so damaging for me to hear that sort of thing. And it took me a long time to really realize why it's so damaging and why it's so dangerous. And really, when you're that young, you know, first of all, self-harm isn't a good coping mechanism. It is one that may work if you're already doing it. It may seem like it's working for you, but in reality, you're not addressing your issues, you're only covering them up. And it's difficult because people who are already self-harming, I don't mean to make anyone feel like they are doing something wrong. I mean, it's not something that I would suggest anyone try or start doing, but it's something that I realize becomes an addiction for a lot of people. It certainly was for me. So, you know, you're in a position where you don't want to feel the inward pain. You want something to distract you, you want something you can control, you want something that will show other people that you are as sick as you are, you know, whatever your reason might be. If you're already cutting, it's difficult to stop, and I sympathize completely with people who are in that position. But for people who are thinking about it but haven't done it yet, it's not worth it. It's not a good coping mechanism. People who are already doing it will only suggest it because they're addicted to it, and they're not aware of how damaging it is to your own brain to continue to do that, because it's something that continues to happen. It continues to follow you into adulthood, and it's very damaging because it makes you feel like your body is not as important as what's going on around you. You know, you, at least for me, it reinforces the idea that the scenario. I deserve to have this type of pain, this type of scar, this type of hurt, because of these emotions. So it reinforces when you feel those types of emotions later in life, you want to cut again. So, which is of course the pattern of any addiction, is, you know, something makes you want to do it, and then when that happens again, you want to do it again. It's just a part of the self-harm cycle. But anyway, getting back to our story about that therapist. Moving on from that specific scenario, I've had a lot of situations where it wasn't necessarily therapists, but it was healthcare workers, mental health care workers. There's a crisis center not far from my house that I've been to a few times before. I've called suicide hotlines a few times before. You know, not necessarily for suicidal ideation either, just different reasons. Being talked down when I'm in an extremely manic state, being able to talk to someone when I'm lonely, you know, that sort of thing. Whenever I was working through a specific emotion, it helps to have someone else there to listen, which is sort of the point of the YouTube videos. Is, you know, it's easier for me to work through things when I am talking to someone rather than talking to myself or just thinking about it. So anyway, as far as the crisis center near my house, every time I have gone there, there's one security guard that I don't know if it's because I present like as a male, like you wouldn't know that I'm trans just by looking at me. So, I'm not sure if that's the reason, or he's just a dick, but, there is this one security guard that always is extremely rude to me, you know, and it's only me. Like, I've seen him interact with other people before, especially, like, I think I went in one night and a lady came in maybe 2 seconds after I finally, like, sat down. I'm so sorry if that furnace is so loud that you can't hear me, but I'm gonna try to get through the rest of the video and ignore it. Hopefully we'll have a better studio when we move. Anyway, every time I go, he's extremely rude to me. This one time when this woman came in right after me, when I walked up to the door, I think it was maybe 11 o'clock at night. It's a 24/7 clinic. He got to the door before I did, and he opened it just enough to stick his head out and say, "Can I help you?" And just kind of looked at me like, "Why the fuck are you here?" And I said, "I need to talk to somebody." And he kind of looked at me for a second and then went, "Okay," and then opened the door so that I could come in. And the way that the room is set up, there's the waiting room that's, you know, over to your right when you first walk in the door. Then there's the exit door on your right, and there's a railing that separates the waiting room from the entrance with the metal detector right to your left. So you walk in the door and there's a metal detector to your left and a wall separating you from the waiting room that you can see over. So he goes through the metal detector, he turns around, I'm not quite through the metal detector yet, and he goes, "Wait, stop, wait there, wait right there, wait there." And he keeps saying it. And he goes to the computer that's next to the metal detector and keeps looking up at me and staring up at me and then looking back down at the computer. And I'm thinking at this point, like, do I look like someone he recognizes, or what's going on? This seems a little bit ridiculous to me. And he finally waves me to come through the metal detector, and I come through, and then he shoos me off to the waiting room, which usually they'll give me some paperwork first, and then I'll fill it out, hand it to them, and then go sit down. That way it cuts out, you know, the therapist having to come back and be like, have you been helped yet? Here's some paperwork, I'll come back in a few minutes, like that sort of thing. But this one security guard does not do that with me. And the lady that came in right after me, you know, I can see everything that happens over this little wall. And she comes right in, he's not even looking up at her, he's looking at the computer. When he does glance up when the door opens, she goes, hi, he goes, hi, how are you doing tonight, you know? What can I do to help, blah, blah, blah. And just waves her through, hands her paperwork, does all of that. When just before, for me, it was a completely different story. So I'm not sure what was happening with him. But it's every time I go in, he acts like this. And then the therapist that I saw there, or one of the therapists that I saw there, one of the things that I struggle with is bulimia. So I had been having relapse thoughts, which for eating disorders, a relapse doesn't necessarily mean that you're not eating or that you're purging or that, you know, you're actually doing anything, but it's that thought process coming back and eating away at you. It's that every time you eat, you feel disgusting, because it's very much a physical disorder as much as a mental one. So you start to feel physically ill even when you're not physically doing anything to make yourself feel like that. At least that's how it is for me. So I was having these thoughts coming on, I was having these physical symptoms, and I went in to try and talk to someone about it. And this lady that I saw, you know, and I'll talk a little bit more about her in another video, but basically it was a heavier set woman, and I told her, you know, I feel so fat, I feel like I can't physically do anything. I've never felt like I am restricted in my movements until now because of my weight, and I don't know what to do. And she just looks at me and she goes, well, I'm a big woman and I don't have any of those issues. So it's the not understanding coupled with the attitude of, well, this isn't wrong with me, so why is it wrong with you? Why are you worried about this? It can't possibly be that bad. Just tone is extremely important when it comes to dealing with people with mental health issues, especially if they're going through a crisis at that moment. And a lot of these people just don't know how to communicate properly with someone that's in that state of mind. But anyway, that was really all I wanted to talk about today. Just a really quick video. Again, if you guys have any suggestions or requests for specific video topics, just let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do.